Cosmic laws, epilogue. Except God. All good things must end. However, where eternal principles of God are concerned, this phrase can never apply. Forever we shall be involved with the universal laws of life. As we strive for a better understanding of God and for a more perfect life, continually we will gain new and more profound insight into the first cause, the good, the old one, principle itself, our Father, Mother, God. The quest for spiritual principles is never ending. Our divine journey always is beginning anew. The cosmos holds new laws yet to be discovered. Let us inquire into one final mystery. Why did not the hierarchy, those who represent the spiritual government of our solar system and are currently guiding the spiritual upliftment of planet Earth into the fourth dimension, give Mark and me, co-founders of Mark Age, a simple and complete list of the spiritual laws of the universe? What could be more helpful to people's spiritual development in order to ensure the success of the second coming of Sananda Jesus, Prince of Earth, and simultaneously the second coming of our own Christ self? What could be more logical than for us to receive these commandments at the start of our partnership and our special work together? Through the centuries, Jewish sages puzzled over a similar question. They asked themselves why the Ten Commandments were not at the very beginning of the Torah. Why did not God reveal the laws to Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob? Why did the Ten Commandments have to wait until Moses' time? Likewise, we should ask why a complete listing of cosmic laws was not given at the inception of every major philosophy and religion. We could ask ourselves about our own spiritual awakening. Did God, through our individual I Am Self, reveal fully all the universal, spiritual principles of the cosmos, as well as a complete understanding of them? There is no record in history of anyone being so fully informed by his or her Christ self, be he or she a common person or a founder of a major religion or philosophy. How is this possible? We all realize that to know God is to love God. In loving God, we are able to love one another wonderfully, completely, righteously, and unconditionally. This is our goal as children of God. This is what each life form, in the deepest part of its being, yearns to be, to know, and to do. Why is it, then, that we do not have a clear knowledge of God's laws from the moment we awaken, and to desire to do His or her will more than ever before in our lives? Ephraim Yerbach, a professor of Talmud, discusses the answer in his book, The Sages, Their Concepts and Beliefs. The very question, why were the Ten Commandments not cited at the beginning of the Torah, flows from the view that the whole concern of the Torah is the precept, and that the entire election of Israel took place only that the Torah might be accepted. All that preceded the history of the patriarchs, the bondage of Egypt and the Exodus, is not of primary importance. All these are to be understood as preparatory events leading to the revelation, the receiving of the Ten Commandments. Only when we are able to accept God's laws will they be revealed to us. Divine principles govern the spiritual awakening process just as they govern every other aspect of life. Cosmic laws such as growth and evolution and love protect us from inadvertently resisting or rejecting spiritual principle before we can accept and understand them enough to use them wisely. Do not resort to self-criticism or a sense of inferiority. Do not think that the reason you cannot clearly receive the laws or gain insight into specific laws in response to your prayers and meditations might be that you are not advanced enough or not capable enough or not good enough. Replace these debilitating attitudes with the truth. As children of God, all of us do, either consciously or unconsciously, receive Spirit daily. Our very existence is proof that each of us accepts God as divine creative energy and God as the spiritual principle that governs the energy. Actually, we have been accepting and acknowledging God ever since we were created. Mary and Jesus did not create a new pattern when they demonstrated the Immaculate Conception and Virgin Birth. They were following the pattern set by our Father, Mother, God in creating each one of us. Throughout creation, the race of man was conceived and created immaculate. Where Emmanuel, God within us, resides, we each are perfectly clean, without spot, perfectly correct, without flaw, fault, or error, pure, innocent, and without sin. Therefore, since no child of spirit ever can be completely separate from his or her Creator, it follows that whoever is alive accepts God. As we serve God, humanity, and all life, we dare not deny this truth. We neither judge nor cast aside one lost sheep, to use Jesus' analogy, because we know that each and every person to some degree accept the law and the energy of our common Creator. Humankind in every culture, whether theistic or atheistic, Gnostic or agnostic, deistic or moralistic, has received God's revelation of cosmic laws throughout the history. The presence of God within us renders the labels we attach to our thought systems meaningless. Only what is in the mind, the heart, the soul, and the physical acts of man has true value. Before Hinduism, people of the Indian subcontinent received God's laws as Rita. Afterwards, along with the creation of Buddhism, the laws of God were conceived of as Dharma. To Egyptians, spiritual laws are known as Mat. To Greeks, Logos. To Chinese and other Asian people, Li, Tao, Tianmin. To Romans, Dik, natural law. To the Islamic world, Sharia. Every native culture around the world has its own name for the inescapable principle of life. The Apostle Paul found this out in his missionary journey, as did other Christian missionaries, often to their surprise, in their travels to spread the gospel to other parts of the world. Paul referred to this prior knowledge in his epistle to the Romans. Indeed, when Gentiles, who do not have the law, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law, since they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts. Well, it was also written in their books. Before Jesus and Paul, there was Cicero, a Roman statesman and philosopher of the 1st century before Christ, and the author of one of the finest formulations of cosmic law ever written. Cicero wrote, "True law is right reason in agreement with nature. It is of universal application, unchanging and everlasting. It summons to duty by its commands and averts from wrongdoing by its prohibitions. It is wrong to alter this law or to repeal any part of it, and it is impossible to abolish it completely. Neither Senate nor people can free us from its obligation, and we need no one outside of ourselves to expound or interpret it. It does not ordain different laws for Romans and Athens, for now and in the future, but one eternal and unchangeable law valid for all nations in all times. And there will be one common teacher and ruler over us, God, author of this law, interpreter and enforcer." No wonder Paul would explain that certain people had a law of God written on their hearts. By focusing solely on man's trials and tribulations, we might be tempted to conclude that we, as a race, are not working with or countenancing cosmic law. Instead, let us trace briefly the lineage and legacy of one cosmic law, love, through the religious and philosophical traditions of Western civilization. The following is only one of the innumerable paths we could track. For as J. Bruce Long writes in the opening of his article on love in the Encyclopedia of Religion, the concept of love in one form or another has informed the definition and development of almost every human culture in the history of world past and present, East and West, primitive and complex. The idea of love originated in divine mind, but let our starting point for love as a divine law of God be the revelations of Moses. In the 10 Commandments it is written, "I am the Lord your God," showing mercy to thousands of generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Jumping ahead many centuries to the Golden Age of Greece, we find that the race of man acquired powerful conceptions of love through the teachings of 3 directors of the spiritual hierarchy: Sananda in his incarnation as Socrates, Hilarion as Plato, and Kuthumi as Aristotle. Further on, Sananda in his incarnation as Jesus focused attention of love by teaching that it was the greatest of all commandments. Centuries later, Thomas Aquinas, the renowned 13th century Catholic theologian, reinvigorated thinking about this divine law by fusing Jesus' teaching about love with those of Aristotle. In the late 1500s to the late 1600s, Francisco Suarez of Spain, a Catholic Thomist and the greatest of all Jesuit theologians, identified the natural precept of mutual love as the power that directs man's society, his political institutions, and relations between nations. Suarez, along with Protestant Dutch contemporary Hugo Grotius, founder of a modern natural law theory, linked love and natural law together as the foundation of what later became international law. Out of this tradition, in the late 1700s, a new nation was born. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Mason, Samuel and John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and the other founding fathers created the United States of America. From this same tradition also came international organizations such as the United Nations, and particularly its 1948 document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A product of this legacy of love is the co-work of the Spiritual Plan and Program for Earth and a friend of Mark Age, Robert Mueller, former United Nations Assistant Secretary General. He brings this divine lineage of love full circle with this realization from his book, New Genesis, Shaping a Global Spirituality. I have come to believe firmly today that our future peace, justice, fulfillment, happiness, and harmony on this planet will not depend on world government, but on divine or cosmic government, meaning that we must seek and apply the natural, evolutionary, divine, universal, or cosmic laws, which must rule our journey in the cosmos. Most of these laws can be found in the great religions and prophecies, and they are being rediscovered slowly but surely in the World Organization. Let us keep this legacy alive by becoming divine law in action. Let us pray that everyone everywhere accept and live in concord with cosmic laws. In doing so, we help ourselves and our sisters and brothers fulfill God's prophecy to Jeremiah concerning the latter days before the coming of the Messiah. This is the covenant I will make. Declares the Lord, I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. Follow God's laws. How then does one come into the awareness of God within and God around him? By following the laws God has laid down for man to follow. How did these laws come to be given to man? Through the powers of Almighty God and the recognition of certain of his sons of the God power within themselves. These are your prophets, your sages, your wise men, and your saint. These sons, who are your brothers, have learned and have sent the message out to the world to recognize and to follow. It is all written, but each generation needs to have it restated for them. In just the way that you as an individual must restate God's law and follow them daily in your life, we tell you to pray continuously, to meditate on God's laws and commandments. We tell you to follow our instructions every day and every moment of every day. Why do we say this? Because it is necessary to restate, to remind, to reactivate those fundamental laws of God. They will not operate without your restatement and reevaluation, but you cannot function without regenerating what you are. What you are is what you think and what you believe. Therefore, by restating every moment of every day who you are, what you believe, and how you think of God, you are rebuilding, regenerating, reestablishing your inner self, your spiritual self, which rules, governs, and determines the health of your mind, body, and your soul. And as you think, so you are. Paul the Apostle, March 25th, 1958. End of chapter. End of book.